I was misinformed for 16 years. I thought I knew it all because I knew how the customer facing side was. And my first year of owning trucks actually taught me more than I ever learned in 16 years. And being in front of it all with my drivers, it's a big difference from owning a brokerage and the responsibility. I talk a lot about responsibility because having these assets, these 80,000 pound machines that have to be compliant and have to be safe and have to be insured, I realized how big the responsibility was and how I shifted that responsibility and risk to the carrier. And so understanding this side, I do want to make a better brokerage and help other brokerages to understand, like, guys, we should share the responsibility with the carriers. Having a truck not being able to move for that day, we had a load. And the funny thing is, check this out, the broker calls us, or we call the broker and say, hey, we were around the corner, we just got hit. You know what the broker said? This is how bad the trust has gotten. The broker's like, oh, now I have to cover. You tell me 5 minutes before the pickup. And I said, oh my God. And I started to realize, and I said, how can we know 5 minutes before that we were going to get in an accident?
No, I wanted to show you some love, right? For the people that will watch this when I post this video today or tomorrow. It's one of those things where, we're both big in the trucking industry. Tristan, you're a friend. We've met. We've grown a connection on LinkedIn. And for truck drivers out there, actually, I challenge you to actually get on LinkedIn as well, because when we talk about a resume, LinkedIn is like I don't want to call it the new place, but it's a place that people forget about. But everyone that's a professional in the trucking industry is on LinkedIn. And so I challenge you to, or promote you to have one, right? So Tristan, tell people what you do, where you're at, what's going on, and give a little short background so people know your credibility and what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Alex, that was a great intro. But so I've been in the industry. I'm going on my 21st year. I started in LTL brokerage, and then I owned the Covenant agency, Covenant Transport, for 10 years, and then decided to start my own trucking company, which is an asset-based IM Freight, and the other brokerage, which is Freightopia. And I've been on LinkedIn, like what Alex was saying. I didn't want to be online. I didn't want to do anything until about 8 months ago. And now I could share stories, and I didn't realize people want to hear our stories. So yes, if you are a carrier or a driver, please share your stories on LinkedIn, because it shortens the sales cycle. And talk, Alex was saying credibility. Don't be hiding, because they want people that they trust, that they can work with.
But how many trucks do you have now?
We have eight. We have eight trailers, eight trucks. And at the peak, we were at 18 with owner operators. But I'm in California, guys, so AB5 is something to worry about, and also electric trucks and the initiatives of the environmental. So it's a tough place to the trucking company.
I'm originally from Cali, right? So people would ask this just like straight up, why the hell do you want to own a trucking company in California? It's like the one state that like hates trucking, right? I don't want to say that, but we all need trucking, but man, they put regulations upon regulations upon regulations on you guys. I mean, what keeps you in Cali?
Other than it being really fun to own a trucking company, I'm joking, right? So I really wanted to learn. I really wanted to know what it was like to own these assets. For a long time, I was always like, the dream wasn't to own a trucking company, but what it was to really understand what it's like to have a functional business. And being an agency owner for Covenant Transport, it's like having a McDonald's, but you're not the owner of McDonald's. So owning these trucks, I didn't realize that California was the hardest when I first started. I'm glad I didn't know any of this stuff, because that would have prevented me from doing so. But the reality was, the first thing was, man, I just want to learn how to become a better, like, servant for the brokerage side. Like, how do I make it better? So we own the assets, because every choke point of a of a broker is a great carrier. So I wanted to go out to build a great carrier. 6 years of doing this, it's very tough. You would be crazy to think I'm doing it for the money.
So most brokers, right? So we'll dumb it down for people. You were a broker agent, right? For Covenant, and you decided to say, "Hey, let me understand truck drivers and carriers a little bit better." So you start your own trucking company on the asset based side, right? Um, most brokers would not do that. So tell people this because I think carriers and truck drivers, owner operators will smile a little bit now. Um, because the carrier side uh, truly believes that brokers are trash at times, and there's not a lot of great ones, and that the carrier is the one holding the bag and doing all the work and having to hold all the insurance and all the liability. Right. So now that you've gone from being a broker to now owning a full set trucking company, you know, do you understand the gripes that the carrier side has now?
Absolutely. I talk to my drivers. I mean, James and Glenn have been here for 6 years, and that's what put me. They're the reasons why I, reached out to Alex a while back because they love this. They love this guy, and I was like, "Who is this guy?" And so and one of my flow of life. Glenn meets Alex at a truck stop, and from then I just Alex was so cool. He'd reach out and I'd tell him about my journey, or my drivers love him, and we'd be texting, and we finally met at Broker Care Summit. But going back to that question, there's a lot of great brokers out there, but there's a lot of misinformation as well. And I was misinformed for 16 years. I thought I knew it all because I knew how the customer facing side was. And my first year of owning trucks actually taught me more than I ever learned in 16 years. And being in front of it all with my drivers, it's a big difference from owning a brokerage and the responsibility. I talk a lot about responsibility because having these assets, these 80,000 pound machines that have to be compliant and have to be safe and have to be insured, I realized how big the responsibility was and how I shifted that responsibility and risk to the carrier. And so understanding this side, I do want to make a better brokerage and help other brokerages to understand, like, guys, we should share the responsibility with the carriers. Because if we're going to act like your carriers by telling them what they should get paid, I mean, now I know exactly how much it costs to run a truck. I can't even argue with someone when I call for a price on my brokerage side, I tell my guys all the time, dude, we can't really argue with them. We know how much it costs. So the name of the game is finding that customer that's willing to support the good guys.
So, I reached out to you because, man, you posted something that I was like, man, this pisses me off too. You know, and was this something personal that happened to one of your drivers?
Yes. So the story goes where we are picking up in Las Vegas, and a lady was on her way to work, and it was kind of raining. It was a red light, but my guy was in the middle, and she runs right into him without stopping. And it wasn't even on the oncoming side; it's just the side that's red, right? Like, runs right into us, and she's in her older Nissan, and I knew it wasn't going to be insured, but it ruined us. It Having a truck not being able to move for that day. We had a load, and the funny thing is, check this out: the broker calls us, or we call the broker and say, "Hey, we were around the corner, we just got hit." You know what the broker said? This is how bad the trust has gotten. The broker's like, "Oh, now I have to cover. You tell me 5 minutes before the pickup." And I said, "Oh my God!" And I started to realize, and I said, "How can we know 5 minutes before that we were going to get in an accident?" And then I go back and put my brokerage hat on. I understand her feelings, and she's probably been, tricked a couple of times, which is totally fair. But now as a carrier, I put my carrier hat on and I go, see, this is what's wrong with the whole broker carrier relationship. No one trusts each other. Anyways, I just want to throw that out there because it is really sad that there's no empathy on each side, because carriers are the same thing. Why did you cancel the load? And we have no idea what the real answer is. But if we were all transparent, it'd be a lot easier. Anyways, we get hit, and this was about 2 months of trying to figure things out. And you lose a lot of money as a carrier, and as we all know, as a carrier, it's like a blood clot. If money stops flowing, we could go out of business. And luckily, I have enough revenue or cash requirements to be in business. But it really hurts that when a person that has a 15, I think the limits in Nevada, minimum limits is 2550. In California, it's 1530. That as a trucking company, even if you're at no fault, you're going to get penalized because the person that hits you does not have enough money to cover your truck. And this was a total loss. And so this made my insurance premium go up by 20% this year because of this accident. After losing 2 months of figuring it out, waiting for Great West and to pay me, and they're actually really awesome and really quick. But I had to talk to the insured, um, and they can only cover up to those limits. So it sucks that a trucking company is always at the um, at the mercy of paying for having an operation. And I mean, there's for us when it hits us. But the thing is, if this was our fault, she would have got $1 million and sued everyone. She could probably sue the trailer manufacturer, which we are here at Wash. She could sue I mean, they're going to sue everyone because it's an 80,000 truck commercial vehicle, right? But we're not allowed to get any, compensation for what we just experienced. And it really made me angry. That's why I posted it. And I said, it's funny how someone that has a 25, 50,000 limit can, that's only up to their liability. Us, it's unlimited.
Would you recommend that all brokers be a carrier and be an asset, be a truck driver before being a broker in some shape or form?
Oh yeah, they're gonna hate me for this one. Yeah, I have this. I do have this. I went to school for 6 years of being a doctor by owning these trucks, right? And now I could prescribe these rates because I understand. But there's a lot of prescribing going on as a broker without actually having to go to school. And just because the data says that doesn't mean that you could prescribe those rates. I can't imagine you going to a doctor and saying, "Hey, I just went on WebMD and I'm going to prescribe you this because that's what they said that I should do for that pain or for this or for that," with no actual schooling involved.
So I'm reading between the lines. I'm reading between the lines. I know what you're saying here. So, brokers, hey, get yourself a trucking company, get yourself some trucks, get into the weeds of it all, bootstrap it. And when you understand how hard it is to be a carrier, then maybe you could be a better broker. So, that could be some good. People are going to be like, forget that, right?
Yeah, do you know how hard it is? Dude, just think about the federal regulations. Forget California. Let's just talk about federal regulations. Yeah, hey, if you're going to act like you're going to be a carrier and think you could just wipe yourself of all the responsibilities because you have a $75,000 bond, that's there's a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
hear you.
hypocrisy there.
No, man. No, I love this conversation. No, I appreciate you. Definitely follow Tristan. I'm gonna have links down below. I know you're on LinkedIn, but I'll link down all your other stuff, your trucking company, all the good stuff. This is kind of just an open conversation, but I think it's great because it gives some understanding and it's going to piss some people off, I'm sure, on some shape or form. I always think all of the interviews are great, but there's always someone that gets a little butthurt by something that's said. And you know what? That's okay. Be better. Be better.
Yeah, it's all right. Like, I mean, we could all be, man. And you're right, man. Like, that's the thing I was scared of most is I didn't want to go on LinkedIn. I didn't want to be talking the way I'm talking. But the more I see and make the connections with the people that are really wanting change on LinkedIn, we're not always going to agree on the same thing, and we're not going to know all the answers. But what we can do is just start figuring it out for change. And if that means someone's going to hate me because I'm sharing a story, well, then so be it. But I think there's a lot of good that comes out of sharing these stories and sharing all of our pains and figuring it out together. And if you're not mature enough to figure it out with someone who's willing to do it, then, continue to be on the spot market at DAT
Oh,
and see
yeah.
how that works.